Welcome back to episode 153 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined as always by Adam.
Hello.
And by Cam.
How's it going?
And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
And new formats.
Lots to talk about this week. We had a bunch of huge announcements, but let's kick things off with what everybody's been waiting to hear about, the DWC Organizational. This past Sunday, our best of three standard tournament we hosted on MTG Arena. It was a ton of fun to host and cast. We're going to have the VODs up on our Twitch page right now, twitch.tv/Disorganized Wizard Club. If you want to go check out the event and the coverage, the plan is to throw up the rounds onto our new YouTube page as well, so be on the lookout for that. But it was a super fun tournament, and it was taken down by Simic Food in the hands of the DWC social media manager, Benson. Back-to-back finals appearance for him.
Yeah. In his own words, his deck dragged him kicking and screaming across the finish line.
There were a couple games that maybe if there was justice he would have lost, but
But he won with Simic Food. I think the top four I know was 3 Simic Foods and 1 lone mono red player, but rounding out the top 8, there was a Bant Food, a Mardu Knights, Green Black Adventures, which was actually the undefeated player in the Swiss for the tournament. It was Green Black Adventures.
Yeah, it was a pretty food-dominated tournament. It was the most played deck in the field, coming around 22% of the field, if I remember correctly. And to everyone's surprise, with Bant Golos kind of hanging over the format, only 2 players brought it.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was actually legitimately shocked by that.
A lot of people bringing decks that were tech to beat Golos, but not a lot of Golos to beat up on. The one of the decks missed top 8 on breakers, I believe. So it came close to pushing through. But the top 8 mostly dominated by green cards and forests. Shocker.
just a feature of standard over the past years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a really sick play. Hopefully I can get a highlight clipped for the YouTube channel where in the top 8, though, mono red playing against Mardu Knights makes like an insane line that ends up 2 turns later winning. And I didn't see it coming. Neither did Alex on coverage. And then we realized what was happening and that he'd set it up over the course of a few turns to get somebody with a bunch of Rimrock Knights and a runaway Steamkin, and
made a seemingly harmless looking attack, and the no blocks spelled the end of the Mardu Knight players game.
Yeah,
they
attacked
just
with
died
2 1-1s.
immediately. Yeah,
did 16 damage.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So if you want to check out the coverage from the end, head over to twitch.tv/Disorganized Wizards Club and be on the lookout for our YouTube channel. We're going to be posting the rounds if you want to follow up on coverage there. And yeah, we had a super fun hosting this event and doing it. It's definitely something we're going to do again in the future, so be on the lookout for that.
Surprisingly easy to organize. Like I was doing the behind the scenes stuff, like just chatting with people in Discord, organizing matches, doing match reports.
Yeah.
All went like super smooth.
All things considered, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot easier than the first time when it was just Benson and I, and Benson was playing in the first one, trying to run it. Oh, man.
Yeah.
It was tough. But yeah, it was way easier this time, and it looked a lot more professional because of that. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty fun.
The only way it could have been more professional was if you guys had earpieces and I could like walkie-talkie in being like, all right, your next feature match is this person. Like, please get them on stream rather than having to open the door. But
maybe in the future, if we can get another big sponsor for the event. But speaking of sponsors of the event, WizardTower.com is a great sponsor of this podcast and of the DWC Organizational. Check them out for all your Magic single needs, WizardTower.com. Moving along, there was also another kind of big tournament that was a little overshadowed by the DWC.
Yeah, but I heard they had production issues and like it was just a little amateur affair.
But Mythic Championship V was also this past weekend. And to the surprise of mostly everyone, I think, Gruel Aggro taking down the entire event in the hands of Javier Dominguez, the current world champion. So not really a surprise there. That guy's a beast. But no, I don't really think anyone pegged Gruel Aggro to be the deck to take down the entire event.
I know Adam was hype on Embercleave going into the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That card is nuts.
That card is nuts.
I told you, man, from day one I said that card, I was like, this thing's unbeatable. That card is wild. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a teamer battle rage that sticks around forever.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Yeah.
that's true.
It's more like a teamer battle, bottled up anger.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the Gruul aggro deck, definitely one of the decks.
That's a fair one to poo.
It was definitely one of the decks brought to be able to pick on the Bankolos decks in the field, which is what he was paired up against in the finals. But unfortunate for the Bankolos player coming up from the lower bracket, he had to win 2 matches to take down the finals, and he was only able to win the first one, and the second one was taken down by Javier. But
yeah, the way the buy system works is super weird. But
yeah, well, they do the whole, esports things of the upper bracket and the lower bracket.
Double elimination.
Yeah. Javier came from the upper bracket, so he only had to win 1 match in the finals, while the lower bracket player had to win 2. But it was a cool event. I heard they had some issues with games having to be restarted and stuff.
There was some
client problems,
issues.
but
we never had any of those at the organizational. So
nope. Just a
pretty sound quality as far as I can tell. So,
but yeah, that was the MC, and then a day later we got what everybody I think expected was coming: the banning of Field of the Dead and Standard.
Yeah, no surprise. I don't even think people were outraged or mad.
No.
Nobody cared.
Well,
this was one of the. Honestly, this was one of the standard bannings because normally I'm anti-ban, right? And I've been anti-ban on the show for a long time. But this was one where everyone was like, yeah, I mean, what do you want here? It's miserable. No one wants to play against it anymore,
Yeah.
We would just like to play mid-range, please.
Yeah, I would like to be able to have options,
I would like my deck list to fit on one screen, please.
Yeah. And now that Field of the Dead is gone, I think, like I alluded to last episode and we talked about on the organizational coverage, I think Simic Oko decks are prone to just run rampant on this format.
Yeah. So I had thought about this after we talked about it on the week, and I was talking to one of the people who top forward the organizational. I was just chatting with them in between rounds or something, or on Discord and I was talking about how probably Hydroid Crisis should have eaten a ban. And the more I think about it, I'm pretty adamant that it was a mistake not to ban it, but it's too late now. For now.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's more played than Field of the Dead. It's in more decks. It's more oppressive. It's more dominant. It's in the number 1 creature. It's a 4 in both Golos decks and food decks. It's just so incredibly dominant. But people don't want to ban it because it feels fair. You never blame Crisis for your loss. You're like, well, I killed the 10/10. You know?
Yeah, it was the 5 cards they
yeah, exactly. But it's easy. It's an easy pill to swallow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is losing to Crisis, and also because it scales. So it is bad early, right? Yeah. So people let it go, but I mean, so is Field of the Dead, and then we didn't let that go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Crisis is more impressive. I think the only argument against it is that it can't go early. It's not. But I mean, I don't think that's a good argument because Field. It's the same thing. So I don't know. The more I thought about it, I was like, Crisis is incredibly oppressive in Standard. Maybe it won't be now moving forward, but when Golos was legal, it was the most oppressive card actually. It was in the archetype that they had to ban and every other archetype that was playing blue-green. Mm-hmm. It's just by far the most dominant creature and card in the format.
Yeah, I agree. I guess you could say that, if they banned Field of the Dead because there weren't many good answers. Field of Ruin had rotated. You could Assassin Trophy. The Golos Mirrors could maybe Agent of Treachery opposing Field of the Dead, but there wasn't many ways for it to really interact with it. I guess Crisis, you can play Narsets or something. Maybe people can adapt to it if people get greedier within these mid-range Oko decks, but still probably not, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, there are cards that answer in the format in some ways. I think the real egregious problem, and this has been since it was spoiled and we had it as our number 1 card from the set, we were like, this card's bananas, this card is so busted from day one, is that it's a cast trigger.
Yeah.
If it was ETB, I don't think it would be as egregious.
If you could Disdainful Stroke it and not still get buried,
not just lose the game.
It'd be a wildly different card.
Yeah.
The fact that no counterspell to it matters is such a beating. A Crisis is so, but again, it's an easy pill to swallow, so it's going to get a pass for a long time and probably will never even come into popular discussion as a ban potential just because it feels fair, even though it's not at all.
Yeah,
They let the Scarab God stick around.
Yeah.
they did.
Like, Crisis is more prevalent than Scarab God was. It's in more percentage of decks.
Yeah.
It's in 73% of decks at the MC.
Yeah, it's in more decks,
Insane.
but it doesn't feel as bad to lose to.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel as bad.
So they're going to let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Scarab God, felt bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why they ban things these days, which I'm not a huge fan of, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Before we wrap up our
Astrolabe also banned in Pauper, which is...
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Astrolabe and Pauper
We said it should have been banned.
a while ago.
That was another one some people had
We,
seen.
we
coming.
were like, we were all like, God, I can't banned. Like,
It's no surprise there.
All right, you made up for it earlier one. Yeah, Astrolabe was just... I mean, Astrolabe and Pauper felt like when Treasure Cruise was legal in Pauper. You remember that when like Tron was just playing Treasure Cruise, like the needle drop, needle drop, the burn card.
Yeah, with the giant on it.
Yeah, it's like if they'd taken a damage, you can like draw a card that turn.
Yeah.
It's like that card's busted with Treasure Cruise. Like it's a 1 mana cycler, Like Treasure Cruise was just everywhere. And then now it's the same, right? Like Astrolabe's just everywhere in Pauper. It makes everything so consistent. Every archetype that plays it just never has issues. They have perfect mana. Like all Pauper decks are built to flicker, or pick things up. Because core Skyfisher has been one of the, core creatures in the format forever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but yeah, no, I don't think anyone's surprised by that one. And I'm happy to see it go. Take a little hit off Tron and the consistency.
Man, you hate to see Tron taking a beating.
Yeah, but the deck's already good. Like, it doesn't need to
It can be better. Come on.
Dude, did you see it or, like, at all in action when it was in Pop with Astrolabe?
I
Dude,
don't play Pauper at all.
you can't. It was so good. You just consistently start Dinrova locking people because you just
that
make
sounds sweet.
infinite mana, basically.
Yeah.
Well, not actually, but... And then once you have Ghostly Flicker plus Mnemonic Wall Dinrova Horror, you
Hell
just... Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, you just
Come
bounce
on.
their whole board.
The only time I saw Astrolabe played was Adam and I went to a Pauper tournament where Adam brought like a Jeskai deck.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like right after Astrolabe got printed. And there was a match where Adam like had his head in his hands with like just prophetic prisms, trying to cast 3-color spells while his opponent had prisms and Astrolabes. And he's like, I've made an oversight.
Yeah. Well, I just like didn't have Astrolabes because it was like week 1 of like them printing. And I was like, I'll just like run this back. And I'm just getting pounded. And I was like,
Oops. Something went really wrong.
Like I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it would matter that much. But like that is how busted Astrolabe was. That like the mirror went from, what a mirror should be, 50-50 to just, I couldn't do anything. Like the game's just over because they have Astrolabe and I don't. It's wild, dude.
Well, before we move on to another big announcement from this past week, I also got to make the push to Mythic for the first time.
With a sweet deck.
Yeah, put aside actual like a day to just play all day and make the push all the way up.
That's really the issue with making,
Yeah.
constant ladder grinds time.
Yeah, I just never really had, the time or, the desire to just put aside an entire day and push it. But I did it this month. And I pushed all the way up with Teamer Super Friends, which was, I posted it on our Twitter page. So if you want to check that list out, check it out at DWC Podcast 1 on Twitter. It's also up in our Discord, which if you want to join, you can head on over to patreon.com/DWC Podcast. Join the DWC Discord. But if you want to go check out the list, it's essentially a aggro deck, whereas game 1, all you're really trying to do is play a turn 2 Planeswalker in the Royal Scions or Oko Thief of Crowns with acceleration from Gilded Goose or Arboreal Grazer. And then you have, a normal food package of Oko, Wicked Wolf, Goose. And then you play Questing Beast as well. And your top end is Sarkhan the Masterless and Skarg and Hellkite. So here's a teamer-based Planeswalker deck. You have Once Upon a Times to game 1, try and find your 1-mana accelerants. And that's kind of your whole game plan. And the deck was super good in a Golos metagame. You really just absolutely dominated that deck every time you were paired against it. You were just way too fast for them, and their board wipes don't interact with Planeswalkers. So, one Sarkhan just usually ended the game immediately. So it was super good there. And I've actually been beating up on the other food decks pretty well because you learn pretty quickly that the only card that really matters in that matchup is Nissa. So if you're able to keep that card off the board, they just have a real hard time dealing with all of your planeswalkers. The deck's super fun to play, and I put together a sideboard guide, and it's going to be going up on our Twitter page and to our Discord as well. We're going to be giving it away for free.
Yeah, we played this deck on stream in some downtime in the organizational, and it was just like laughable. We were just smashing people.
It's super fun. So the original list was playing 3 mana Domri and was playing the full 4 Arboreal Grazer and 4 Once Upon a Times. I trimmed down Grazer and Once Upon a Time to 3 and cut the 2 Domries to add Bone Crusher Giant to the deck. Because, I know, Cam, you hate this, but as linear as you want to be with this deck in game 1, not having any interaction on 2 can really hurt you in some matchups. Like when you don't have a 1 mana accelerant and your Simic Food opponent does, you really want to be able to get their goose off the board if you're on the play. So having Bone Crusher Giant is kind of necessary. And there's been a big uptick in, low to the ground aggressive decks like Knights decks and Mono Red. And you kind of want to be able to deal with their creatures because a lot of the times versus those decks, just playing a turn 2 Planeswalker isn't good enough because they can really pressure it. So adding Bone Crusher to the Giant to the deck was actually really good in the long run. I like the change a lot, but it's a little different than most of the decks that you've seen with this. But yeah, the general kind of just thoughts about the deck. I used to never sideboard out a Boreal Grazer because I was really just kind of locked in that you're a linear aggro deck. You just want to play a turn 2 Planeswalker all the time. But in post-sideboard games, things change a lot. I think it's a lot more important to be interactive instead of linear. And you really need all of your cards to just have text when you go to the late game because there's a lot of decks like the Simic decks you're going to get to the late game no matter what. So having your cards actually do something past turn 1 and 2 matters a lot. Where
Grazer sucks.
Yeah, a Boreal Grazer is really only good on turn 1.
Yeah, I think in this deck it's actually good though because you can just pitch it to Scions that we're making it 3/3 with Oko.
Yeah,
like Arboreal Grazer is a lot better in a deck where you have Scions and Oko.
Yeah,
because then you draw it late. It's fine.
Yeah, like it's excellent. It's excellent game 1, but
yeah, post board you'd rather have
post board just like having 2 mana interaction and Aether Gust or Disdainful Stroke, Lava Coil, just something else has been so much better. And I really found my results with the deck turn around when I started realizing that and was actually sideboarding out Grazers in the sideboarded games, which was cool. Some notable interactions with the deck. Questing Beast Royal Scions is just like unstoppable.
Yeah, they have to have a removal spell for Questing Beast, so they can't do anything.
They literally just can never block, can never stick a Planeswalker in the board. And funny enough, Royal Scions, it has so much loyalty. It's same kind of vein as Oko. Like it gets to ultimate really quickly.
Yeah, no, I think Royal Scions is actually a good card. I think it's underappreciated.
Yeah, and it's one of those cards that when it was spoiled, a lot of people were kind of confused because its 2 pluses seem like they go in different decks. But both pluses in this deck are just incredibly good because you're an aggro deck and, the one combination with Questing Beast, but also just like looting every turn is super good. So you can find your bigger payoffs.
Numerous times on when we were playing it. Like you ulted all the time.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you want to check out the sideboard guide, deck guide for this, head on over to our Twitter page at DWC Podcast 1, or it's going to be up on our Patreon and in our Discord as well. So if you're a patron, be on the lookout for that.
Is it a flavor fail to have the Royal Scions in the same deck as the Thief of Crowns?
Well, this is a deck about their contest, the battle for the crown.
Right, but like decks are supposed to synergize, not compete with one another.
Internal conflict.
Yeah.
Internally conflicted.
It could be, yeah. So perhaps the biggest announcement of this past week was the announcement of a new format.
Yeah, they finally banned Modern.
Modern.
The last and final Modern
The Mad Lads, they did it.
Yeah, Pioneer new Magic format announced. It has GPs already announced for the beginning of next year. It's basically
they're throwing a lot of support behind it.
Yeah, it's a non-rotating format starting from Return to Ravnica forward. Fetch lands from Khans of Tarkir block banned.
How many times have we said that the fix to Modern would be to ban the first couple editions, like 8th and 9th, and ban fetches.
Yeah.
Constantly. I
All
hate
the time.
fetch lands suck. They're the worst.
And they did it.
Yeah.
This format doesn't have 8th or 9th, and it doesn't have fetches.
And it doesn't have a bunch of sets that also suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So
finally fixed Modern, maybe.
there's been a lot of hype around this format so far. A lot of people brewing decks, and a lot of people share the same sentiment that we do, that banning fetch lands was just an amazing, amazing call.
Fetch lands are a disaster. They are, I mean, you can go back and every month or two or every BNR announcement, we'd say that's what they should have banned in Modern. They're awful. They're miserable. They're the best lands ever printed, and they are too powerful for most formats. Yeah, they're awful. The gameplay is also awful, like in paper. I just love re-randomizing my deck every time I want to get a land.
Yeah, eternal formats being mostly shuffling.
Yeah, it's just they're just awful. Everything about them is awful. They're too consistent. They're too powerful.
Yeah, and it puts a constraint on deck building too, because there's a lot more you have to consider when you don't have fetch lands. And notably, this format has all the powerful delve spells from Khan's block, and it also has Deathrite Shaman, which Deathrite Shaman I don't think is playable in this format because fetch lands don't exist.
Right.
But
Yes.
people are going to try and play it because it's Deathrite Shaman, but I think they'll realize pretty quickly that card sucks.
Yeah. There are theoretical spaces it can be played.
Sure. Yeah, but it's not going to be, the format, boogeyman like it was in Modern and in Legacy because fetch lands don't exist. And actually, I think the other really popular cards that have been banned in multiple formats, Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time, I think those cards are still good, but I don't think they're nearly as oppressive as they would have been if fetch lands would have been in this format.
Well, yeah.
I actually think they're probably cards that don't need to be banned in this format because of that reason alone.
So I think that there's a good chance Dig or Treasure Cruise eat a ban.
Why is that?
Because there's still because Cathartic Reunion's legal.
Like, didn't Treasure Cruise get banned out of Pauper, and Pauper doesn't really play fetch lands?
Yeah, like, it depends on the speed of the format, but, like, I mean, the fact that Cathartic Reunion and Tormenting Voice or Thrill of Possibility and all these cards exist, like, you can just Treasure Cruise so easily.
If you want to cast those cards easily and, like, often, you can.
Yeah. The other problem is, like, Grizzly Salvage Emery, like, I think there's lots of ways to enable it, and you should just build your deck to play Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time. I don't think they're long for this world.
Like, I think any like off or like early sacrifice of power because you're maybe quote unquote spinning your wheels a bit in order to put some stuff in your graveyard is just going to be offset by the fact that you cast a 1-mana draw 3, and now your opponent's just way behind.
Yeah, well, like, I'm just particularly thinking about one of the archetypes that I think people should start with, which is like the Phoenix decks. And that deck's just going to get Treasure Cruise banned. Like, I'd be surprised if Dig or Treasure Cruise survive that.
Yeah, like that you get to just dump a bunch of stuff into your graveyard. You really probably only care to leave like an instant for your Jace Friend's Prodigy. And then your Phoenixes.
Yeah, you have Jace Friend's Prodigy, Cathartic Reunion.
Yeah, Jace Friend Prodigy dumping Phoenix. But you basically only have to leave your like 2 or 3 Phoenixes in the graveyard. You get to delve away everything else for 1. Or delve away everything else, Treasure Cruise for 1, draw 3, find 2 other spells in there, like almost guaranteed.
And then cast them. And
if you have a Jace, you have to find 1 more spell.
yeah. I'd be like, I think it'll be maybe a bit, depending on how fast the format is, but I'd be surprised if certain cards aren't eating it like very quickly. And they're gonna be very strict with the bannings, right? They're not waiting for BNR announcements.
I'm not sure. Was that announced?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Aaron Forsyth said on Twitter that they're not waiting for typical BNR. They're going to manage the format early and aggressively.
But I do
That's a
like
good call, yeah.
that they're leaving it open to begin with.
Yeah, I do
That's
too.
sweet.
Giving it space so that like people can see what's happening and what's actually busted. Because like I get what you're saying though, because you don't know for sure Treasure Cruise is just like busted because there's no fetches.
Mm-hmm.
But like the problem is it wasn't just fetches that made Treasure Cruise nuts. It was just Ponder and Brainstorm too. So like really here it's like Opt and a few other spells that
Yeah. Like I think these cards won't be as widely as adapted as they would have been if the fetch lands were in the format. And because you have to build your deck specifically with being able to cast these cards in mind, I think that like not every deck is going to play it.
No,
which
it's not
is
going to be
a
like,
reason why I'm not sure if they'll actually need to eat it.
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, like
There
in modern,
is a deck building cost to it, right?
yeah, but in modern, when these cards were banned, it was like only one deck, like only a few decks were playing it with success. It's just no one else could beat them, you know?
Yeah.
That's because those cards are just that messed up.
Well, yeah, that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to is the decks that are building their deck with Treasure Cruise and Dig in mind, if those decks are too oppressive.
Yeah, like I would love to see a world where Treasure Cruise is playable, you know, like in a format safely, but I don't think that world exists. Because I even think like blue-white control is just going to play 4 Treasure Cruise. They'll play 4 opt, you know, and then just start playing. They'll play Fabled Passage.
Yeah.
Because they're just blue-white. They're just going to play Fabled Passage, opt, Supreme Verdicts, some counter spells, Treasure Cruise.
You know what, though? When they, or if they do ban Treasure Cruise, the format's not going to speed up or slow down. Because that's what happens when you're on cruise control.
Oh, my God.
So, I don't know. Like, it just depends how the format shakes up. I think a lot of the ways to think about this format is like, there's 2 ways to think about it. It's either faster standard or it's modern with bad mana.
Okay.
You know, in the sense of like, are your decks going to be slow enough to interact, and is interaction going to matter? Or are you going to have to be linear, which is worse mana, which is what modern is, but with good mana, right? Just these linear combo decks. I think that one of the problems is like the removal kind of, like I see all these lists with like Fiery Impulse, and I'm like, really? Like, ugh. Like,
I get that people are trying to replace Bolt, and I guess if people are trying to play a lot of like linear creature-based aggro decks, it'd be fine. But we'll see.
like I see like, I saw like somebody post like a blue-red Phoenix list, you know, and it's got like 4 Fiery Impulse. I'm like, what if you just don't play against a creature deck? Like,
Yeah, in a
and
deck
also
like
just
Phoenix,
zero
you wanna go
lava,
face, yeah.
zero axes, like lightning axes. I'm like, okay, well, like,
Yeah.
well, this conversation, like, I just close this day, you know. I'm just gonna go ahead and close this.
Yeah.
I guess that's another like word of caution or word of warning at the beginning of the format is that there's going to be a lot of good archetypes built extremely poorly.
Yeah, the archetypes will be just a train wreck as far as missing powerful cards. Like I saw like it was pretty cool. It was like a humans like Thalia Lieutenant 16 Savannah Lion deck, you know, just 16 1-mana 2/1s, and then like Thalia's Lieutenants. But one of the 1-mana 2/1s they were playing was like a recent uncommon, you know, just one of the like 1-mana 2/1s, and it just didn't have Soldier of the Pantheon. You know, it's like, we're just not going to play the one that has a protection from multicoloring. Unless that thing's not a human and I'm misremembering, but
It's a human soldier.
yeah, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just deck, because people are still in the phases Cam pointed out of.
Just realizing what's legal in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
format, which check out some like magic search engines.
Scryfall. Use Scryfall.
Use
Don't
Scryfall. It's very
Gatherer.
good.
Scryfall is the best.
Gatherer doesn't have a pioneer filter yet.
Yeah, imagine.
Watsy,
Scryfall had
please.
it like the day it was
Yeah,
announced.
Yeah.
Scryfall's amazing. I've been using Scryfall for years.
It's great.
It's the best.
Yeah.
My bet for bans in this format, before we talk about like the archetypes and all this,
Yeah.
my bet for bans are like Treasure Cruise Dag, Emrakul. I think Emrakul's gone, and possibly Marble.
I could see Dig surviving, but maybe not.
Yeah, I can see Dig surviving for a few years even,
Mm-hmm.
but I think eventually it gets the axe.
You think Copter's safe?
I think Copter probably gets the axe, maybe. Because the thing is, it was just the way Standard shaked up that made Copter so busted, that there was no good answers to the way the threats lined up. Remember, we talked about like, because they printed Fatal Push after they banned Copter, remember?
Yeah.
Fatal Push never got to be, and it was meant to be an answer to Copter, and it never got to be in the format. But we have all those things. Well, sort of. But yeah, you have Abrupt Decay, you have all these things.
Yeah.
Karn. you
Yeah,
know?
there's a lot of good answers to it for sure.
So I'm not sure on that one. And I'm not even sure
Well, Braid is
Treasure
around
Cruise. Sorry?
now. A Braid is around as well.
Yeah, Braid. A Braid's really good.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure. Even Treasure Cruise and Dig get banned soon, but I think they're on like the inevitability list. Because it also, those are like the Delve cards restrict all future, you know, like design principles. Like you have to be so careful about what you're allowing into the format, you know, where you have cheap, efficient spells.
Yeah, it's like what people say every once in a while. There's a new set. Like, can't believe they printed another dredge card. Like these types, there are certain types of mechanics that can sort of accidentally interact with new cards.
Yeah, exactly. And, cheap interactive spells. Like, that's really what they have to be careful about printing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just delve cards. So, like there's like a delve deck even in this format, right? It's just a archetype like Grizzly, Salvage, Treasure Cruise, Gourmet Angler.
Oh.
Big angles.
Oh, yeah, angles is in the format.
Right? Like, that's pretty good. It also has big angles, like killable in this format, like with the removal everyone plays.
Roast it.
Yeah, Roast is actually good.
Yeah.
Roast is a good card in this format.
Yeah.
But like big angles is like, a lot of the deck lists you see, it's like Fiery Impulse,
Yeah, you could just fire impulse it twice at him.
Abrupt Decay.
Mhm.
Man, how good is Jace Vryn's Prodigy in this format?
It's going to be wild.
JVP is like the mind sculptor of this format. That card's nuts. It enables Treasure Cruise. It enables like all these dredge cards. It's good in like company decks.
It's going to be the way it was in Standard. I'm ready for people to like trim it or talk about how they don't think they should include it because it always dies.
Yeah,
And then not realize that the game it doesn't die. They just I can't lose.
I don't think it's going to be as good as it was in Standard, though, just because there's no fetch lands.
Yeah, no, I don't
It's
think
going to be so much slower to actually flip that card.
Yeah, well, it depends on because you can
Like,
still
yeah.
play a lot of cheap interactive spells.
For sure.
It will be slower to flip, but when it was in Standard, there weren't really like outside of Delve, there weren't cards you wanted in your graveyard. Like you weren't pitching Phoenixes, you weren't pitching Amalgams, you weren't doing stuff like
I
this.
think that is the thing, right? The dredge decks. We should probably just talk about the archetypes.
Yeah, well, we're going to jump into
we got a hype list.
some archetypes that we think are good to start the format off.
Yeah, like if you're just thinking, well, like what can I play? I still have all my cards from RTR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did some brainstorming, came up with some springboard archetypes.
Yeah, so starting things off with the combo decks, probably one deck that a lot of people jump to right off the bat, 4-color copycat combo.
4-color, 3-color, whatever it is. Saheeli Rai and Felidar Guardian.
So this is
Best
all.
buds.
This is also on my list of banned. This is card.
Yeah.
This is not long for this world.
Well, yeah, so like I think a really good spot to start if you're brewing decks for this format is just look at the cards that were banned in Standard and just build something with those because they were too good for one format. And, depending how we're approaching this format, like it's possible they're still too good for this one as well. So why not start there?
Well, it's also the only like Splinter Twin style combo kill in the format, right? It's the only 2-card insta-win combo.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's multiple ways you could build this deck. If you're looking back to the standard versions of this deck, there were Jeskai versions. There was 4-color energy versions. I threw together a 4-color energy version of this deck, just picked out a bunch of cards that I thought, that were either banned in standard or would play really well with this combo. So we have, Attune with Aether, Rogue Refiner, Harness Lightning, probably one of the best removal spells in this format.
It is top 5. It's unreal.
Yeah, and
it's just
then-
Terminate. It always has been.
Yeah, and then threw in Reflector Mage in there because it's a great target to blink, also to copy with Saheeli Rai. And then Oko as well. Oko, a card that a lot of people have been complaining is too good for standard and think should be banned, so why not throw that card in there? And also, of course, Teferi Time Raveler. It protects your combo in itself. Completely shuts off entire decks.
Another card I think might be on the chopping block at some point.
Yeah, I mean, people have been complaining about that card since it got printed, so who knows?
Yeah,
But
but
yeah, this is
4-color
just,
copycat is probably a pretty obvious ban in this format eventually, but I think it's probably early on going to be a dominant card.
Yeah, exactly. There's been talk about Emery combo decks, artifact-based combo decks with, paradoxical outcome.
Yeah, Paradoxical
Stuff like
Outcome.
that.
There's a bunch of different, actually, Emery-based combo decks. Like people even talked about Godpharaoh's Gift because it can help you put things in the bin, and then you can gate to the afterlife, which doesn't look too good in the face of Teferi when they bounce your Godpharaoh's Gift. But I'm just saying, there's a bunch of 1-mana blue creatures that mill,
Oh, yeah.
like a ton,
Yeah, a lot.
and have interaction like that. So you can actually go pretty quick. Like you could, I don't know how consistent it would be, but I think actually surprisingly consistent to start always having a turn 4 GPG, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
And then,
There's a combo deck of the most recent standard Kethis combo.
Yeah.
Which that one's probably going to be a difficult one to find.
Yeah,
But
the mana is tough. How you build it is tough. You know what I mean?
mhm.
As far as Emery decks, also Astral Cornucopia is legal.
Yeah, sure is.
That card's quite interesting.
Hmm.
That card's gonna show up in combo decks fairly consistently, I feel like.
Yeah, it shows up in some modern combo decks, so I don't see why it wouldn't here as well.
Yep. So I think that's gonna be something that pops up. Marvel, obviously.
Yeah,
Spin
Aetherworks
to
Marvel.
win.
Yeah. I've seen people put it together. It doesn't. That's a weird one though, because you are still kind of locked in on a lot of
On playing Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot.
yeah, like Kaladesh block cards. You
And-
don't get to reach too far out of there because the energy package is too important, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking about this. At first, I thought Marvel would probably be banned. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, if it isn't too powerful at the beginning, it never will be
Mhm.
because they won't print more energy cards.
Yeah.
So it's actually safe
Mhm.
because it has such tight deck building restrictions on what you can play in the deck that it might not actually be that playable. It's probably still very good just because Emrakul and Ulamog are going to like,
Yeah,
you know,
those cards nuts.
you just spin on turn 4, and if you hit, you probably win against most decks. So it still might be an issue if they find a way to become more consistent. Then
Yeah. Funnily enough, Marvel puts the cards into play, right?
you cast
You
them.
cast them.
them?
That's why you get the Eldrazi triggers.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's why you can like
Oh
mog
my
people's
God.
lands off
Yeah,
Marvel.
I forgot about that.
Right. Yeah.
Jeez. I was like,
That's why I'm saying, like,
Oko and Teferi will save us, but
Nope.
like if they're getting exiled or something, doesn't
yeah,
do
yeah.
anything.
No, God, no. Yeah,
My
that's
God.
why, yeah. Cast triggers, man.
Wait, you can't. If you have a Teferi in play, your opponent can't Aetherworks Marvel, right? Because they can't cast it at instant speed.
Ooh, that is
So
interesting.
Teferi completely shuts it off. We're safe.
Yeah.
There we go.
Wow.
Teferi's
That is
a-
Man,
obnoxious.
Teferi Time Raveler, savior of our format.
Yeah, someone was saying how like Teferi also
Gear
blanks
Hulk.
the Gearhulk trigger.
Yeah. Saves you
Same
from
way it
torrential
blanks
Gearhulk
like
as
Finale
well.
of Promise.
Dude, Teferi
Teferi's
Time
gonna get
Raveler,
banned.
man.
I think Teferi gets banned.
Build your decks
So
with
obnoxious.
Teferi. Jesus.
Yeah, Teferi's horrible.
Man. The fact that it just like completely shuts off entire decks like that is insane.
Yeah, and you can't, like, Harness Lightning doesn't target it, so you can't kill it. Like, there's no
Yeah.
good way for Marvel to kill a Teferi.
No.
They
Man.
could
Good
they could
times.
turn their Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot into an elk and attack it.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of other combo decks from sort of era past that are probably going to see play too, you know?
Yeah, just like off the top of our head, there were Jeskai Ascendancy is in the format, Rally is in the format.
Yeah, Rally is probably quite strong.
All these
Yeah.
sort of linear decks.
Yeah, Rally has a lot better enablers.
Oh,
too
yeah,
now,
they got a lot of toys.
Yeah.
And they have just insane creatures they can bring back. Like, they just have a host of busted creatures.
Mhm.
Like, Rally, I don't know how, like, fair creature decks beat Rally.
Yeah, I don't know either. They
Like-
couldn't before.
Yeah, they couldn't before. And
No.
I mean, again, this is Jace Vern's Prodigy back again.
We do have really good sideboard options though now.
Oh, yeah, Rest in Peace
this
is legal.
format. So there are definite ways to fight it. But yeah, Rally the Ancestors is a deck that I would be looking out for as a combo deck because yeah, the enablers you gain from Return to Ravnica alone are just so good for that deck.
They are busted. Absolutely busted.
Yeah. Another deck that I think is a really good place to start in the format is Hardened Scales Widening Constrictor deck.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of people throwing lists out there for that, but
Hemsley just thrilled.
Yeah.
yeah, you have this deck notably has 8 copies of the same card essentially.
Already
with
played
Constrictor.
games with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so 8 copies is usually the
The
amount
rule.
you want when you're looking for an enabler like this, and you have Walking Ballista, you have Hanger Backwalker, you have Stone Coil Serpent from Throne of Eldraine. Just 3 fantastic X artifact spells.
The only downside is that Snake's not a construct. That's such a beating.
Yeah, you can't win them all though.
Yeah.
And notably enough, green black is one of the color pairings that has just excellent mana.
Yeah.
All the enemy color pairs have way better mana bases than the allied color
Fast
pairs.
lands and pain lands.
Yeah,
And creature lands.
yeah.
I think the
Oh,
creature lands are very good.
But yeah,
Like
Hardened
Hiss and
Scales.
Quagmire and all that. Like, I think they're very, very good.
Yeah, if you're looking for a really solid week 1, aggressive deck that's very synergistic, I think Hardened Scales Winding Constrictor's a really good spot to be.
Yeah, or any of the artifact-based decks, like the next one on the list, which is just Affinity, which, you know, you have in Soul Artifact, Galvanic Blast. Not Gal Blast, sorry, Shrapnel Blast.
This is another deck from Standards Past. People suiting up.
Scissors.
Yeah. Making
Put the scissors on a Ginger Brute.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And that has evasion.
Mm-hmm.
How's its green-black matchup? Does Rock still beat Scissors?
I imagine Walking Blist is a bit of a pain in the ass.
They can't beat like Abrupt Decay, Fatal Push, like
yeah,
Abrupt Decay your Scissors.
Yeah,
rocked. But yeah, no, Affinity's great.
Paper.
Affinity's really good. It's all 1-drops. You can just play like Ginger Brute and all those with Shrapnel Blast and Insole, but then you get to play Experimental Frenzy in that Scissors deck. Because remember one of the things that Scissors deck did was just dump its hand by turn 2.
And they had to resort to Days Undoing while it was in Standard.
Yep, for a card draw. Now we just get to play Experimental Frenzy.
That's pretty good. I
Why
didn't
give
think
our
about
opponents
Frenzy.
cards?
Most lists I saw didn't think about Frenzy. Is one of the first things I thought of. I was like, wait,
Nice.
you just get to play your whole deck.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, you just dump everything into play. Because
Yeah.
you're playing Springleaf Jump, you're trying to cheat out all these 1-drops as fast as you can. Why aren't we playing Experimental Frenzy or Treasure Cruise?
Yeah.
I'll also accept Treasure Cruise.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of options for building this deck. Lots of really unfair things you can be doing. Speaking of unfair things,
So this is a deck I played while it was in Standard, and it was only in Standard briefly. I think it was a feature of large set Standard.
Yep.
And it was a ton of fun, and so I'm excited to go back. This is it was the Dredge deck featuring like prized amalgams, and at the time it was playing that 4-mana zombie that made a
Haunted
spirit.
Dead?
Haunted Dead.
I think you still want that card in this archetype too.
Because you're emerging Deep Fiends and you have Cause Return.
yeah.
That deck was sweet.
This deck is still probably awesome.
Yeah.
But now we have Narcomoeba. You
Yeah, you
get Grizzly Salvage, Grapple is still around, Seder Wayfinder is still around.
Stitcher Supplier.
Stitcher
Ooh,
Supplier,
Stitcher Supplier's here now.
There's
Treasure Cruise,
fantastic.
just cruise and dig.
Really good enablers now for this archetype.
and then just gas for Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Like any deck that has Stitcher Supplier, Deep Fiend, and Cruise, I'm listening.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're
Because a single like Stitcher Supplier sacked to something enables a Treasure Cruise,
that is wild.
basically, right? Like,
Yeah, you're like
Well, yeah,
6 of the 8 mana.
if it dies, you're
Yeah, I wonder if you're playing some cheaper Emerge things. There's not a ton of cheaper Emerge things, but 2-sack your Stitcher Supplier. Anyway, the card choices in these archetypes is going to change based on the meta and such, but it was powerful. Like instant speed, like trigger my amalgams for end of turn, tap your lands, wrath you. Next turn, attack with amalgams and a 5/6. Like that's got to be good enough.
Yeah, and this is one of those decks that you already have a really good baseline for because this deck just existed as a whole already. So if you just swap in your really good enablers, you already have something that you know works and functions well.
Well, also just being able to tap down people's terrains, and their upkeep is going to be really powerful. It protects you as long as they don't have Teferi. It protects you from the Saheeli combo.
Yeah.
Like you can't get comboed. You can start chaining them together. If you have Treasure Cruise, you can start just chaining Deep Fiends pretty safely. And then you makes your discard for Haunted Amalgam good, right? Discard 2 cards, like that refuels your Treasure Cruise. Like I think this might be the deck that helps get Cruise banned.
Yeah, Creeping Chill as well, which is a card I didn't realize at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of reach in this deck.
Yeah, I mean you can just play like there's so many ways to build this deck. And I think Deep Fiend's actually nuts in this deck.
Oh yeah.
Amalgam, and then you just have Treasure Cruise. Like I think those alone are a warning sign for Cruise. But yeah, I think it lines up well in the format because Deep Fiend is just such it's such a powerful card. The fact that it's not any permanent, not non-land permanents, that you can tap down people's lands is just nuts.
Yeah.
And it's a flash threat. It's just so powerful.
Yeah. Well, we should post a bunch of the deck lists we've been working on.
Yeah, I'll post
up in our Discord and on our Twitter page so people can see actual versions of these decks that we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, the Marvel decks too that I didn't get a chance to talk about was playing Karn in it.
Yeah.
Being able to you put 1 Marvel on the board and you can tutor it. Karn changes, there's so many interesting artifacts too, like Sorcerer's Spyglass to shut down Okos that you'd be worried about for your Marvels, right?
You got Pithing Needle in the format as well.
Needle.
Yeah.
I mentioned that in chat that I thought Needle was one of the most important sideboard cards in the entire format. Like I spec'd on them. I just bought a bunch of them.
Nice.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of weird. Yeah, I spec'd on a bunch of cards. Just because I think it lines up super well in the format. Needle's really powerful, so yeah, and Karn can go get your needle. Karn shuts off Copter, so you don't get smugglers coptered.
Yep.
Also shuts off opposing marvels.
Yep. And Karn is a great creator who's very good in this format.
Your opponents can't sack their food.
If we just talked about hardened scales and affinity.
Yeah.
Card does a lot.
Yeah, not a bad pickup for the Marvel decks for sure.
But the graveyard's looking like a healthy space, so Ben's going to be happy. A lot of the graveyard fans out there are going to be happy because I think there's various dredge builds, not just the emerge builds, but just dredge, like Creeping Trill, Narcomoeba, Amalgam decks that aren't trying to cause return Deep Fiend. That are just trying to Dr. Edge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, Blue-Red Phoenix, right? A deck on our sort of archetypes that you can expect to see play at the beginning. I mean, this is also a graveyard deck. A deck that has Cathartic Reunion, Treasure Cruise, Phoenix, Thing in the Ice. Like, we're already looking at a modern deck, right?
Yeah, you don't have the good 1-mana enablers, something like Faithless Looting, but you...
well, neither does modern.
Yeah, neither do they.
Yeah. Not anymore. But this is a deck that can safely play cards like Treasure Cruise and not get them stranded in your hand because you're going really hard on your graveyard strategy. It really just depends, I guess, if what you're doing lines up well against the format.
Chase Vern's Prodigy, Thing in the Ice, Treasure Cruise, Phoenix, Opt, Roast, removal spells, done.
Yeah.
This deck's easy.
Yeah, kind of builds itself.
And that's a scary sign, right? I think it's very good.
Yeah. Another good spot for this format are the devotion decks, specifically mono green.
Oh, yeah. Nykthos is... Are you telling me Nykthos isn't a powerful card?
It's a messed up card. Dude, we talk about banning mana mechanics all the time on this podcast. Nykthos, like...
one of the kings.
The king of mana mechanics, man.
I'm going to make all these.
You have how many 1-mana dorks?
I mean, there's 12, right? 8 or 12 for sure. Or sorry, I meant like you can play 12 copies.
Yeah. You could play 12 if you want, but automatically you play Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic in a deck like this.
And then you can play Goose if you want.
Yeah, if you want. You have...
Is there anything else? I think that's it.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
1-mana dorks?
I could be... We got to hit up the Scryfall. But yeah, anyway, you can play a bunch of dorks.
Mm-hmm. Arbor Elf was before. Yeah, it's not in this format. You get to play Leyline of Abundance, which is fantastic with your devotion plan.
That's free to devotion. And then, you get to play, I don't know, ramp to a Genesis Hydra and just cast whatever you want. Or
put blue in your deck and just ramp to Hydroid Krasis, draw 10 cards on turn 3 if you want. You get to play Nissa Who Shakes the World, probably, I would assume. This deck seems scary.
There's a couple good, overrun effect ramp things,
Finale of Devastation.
Endray's Forerunners.
Oh, yeah, Endray's Forerunners.
Or there was the Emerge one. The big green Emerge pig that, overran your team.
Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Terror of something, or...
Yeah, it was a weird one, but yes, because it's the Craterhoof Behemoth effect.
Yeah.
And...
Well, yeah, we're just playing Finale of Devastation, though, right? Because that...
Yeah,
I feel like you're easily casting that for 10 plus every time.
Yeah, go get it and just kill them.
Yeah.
One shot. The devotion deck can just play all the dorks and then just one shot you with combo off Nykthos. I think they can do it pretty consistently on turn 4, turn 5. This is probably the true turn 4 format.
Yeah.
Without, they can goldfish you, turn 5, turn 4.
Decimator of the Provinces.
Yeah, the big old hog.
It's a cast trigger, so it's not as good off Finale of Devastation, but plus 2/+2.
I know that team. I know that one's a cast trigger, but there's other ones that are not, which is what we're looking for, right? But
yeah, Nykthos Finale, that's probably something you should be looking towards.
Yeah, Nykthos Finale is probably amazing. I mean, there's even hilarious mono blue devotion, master waves, all those things, which aren't really Nykthos based. They're just based on creating stuff, but there is a hilarious combo of Master of Waves Risen Reef.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Because the Master Waves tokens are elementals. I love that. I mean, it's probably not good, but it's hilarious. But yeah, the mono green Leyline of Abundance Nykthos deck is probably terrifying.
And that's just another deck that essentially builds itself, and I think it's a really good place to start the format because people are just not going to be ready for that kind of strategy.
Yeah, unless they're playing Wrath.
Yeah,
they're going to get run over.
Well, sometimes it just might not even matter. They might just kill you before you get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking for this turn 3 cause return.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got green, white, Enchantress builds on this list as well, which is a deck you were
I'm
talking
just
about briefly.
curious about, because there's the recent creature that's like 3 mana that makes enchantments cost 1 less. There's another one from the Theros era that there's also Eidolon of Blossoms. And what's the other one that lets you draw a card when you cast an enchantment?
Satyr Enchanter? Satyr Enchanter?
Yeah.
Satyr Enchanter.
And I think there's one more somewhere as well. And
SRAM
so
does something similar.
SRAM.
is
Is it
for auras.
auras?
It's
Auras
for
only,
auras
yeah,
and
yeah.
equipment. But yeah, there's just a bunch of these like enchant reduction costs. And I feel like Starfield and Nyx was already a close deck in standard. And in fact, it did top 8 some tournaments, strangely enough.
It was,
But it was a fringe deck.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying 16 creatures that have all these synergistic effects with enchantments is pretty interesting, especially when, I don't know, let's say your Prison Realm costs 1 and draws a card. It's like, your
It's the best removal spell in the format.
Your Oblivion Ring costs 1 and draws a card. Your Ixalan's Binding costs 2 and draws a card.
Ooh.
And then you start binding Teferi first so that they can't bounce, but then you start binding their important cards,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's actually kind of interesting, like, as a prison deck, like Green, White, Enchantress, that's just trying to start locking you out, because there's also Enchantress prison cards in standard, right? Like, people can't attack you unless they pay whatever, like,
Yeah.
you can start locking.
Sphere of Safety.
Yeah, which is very expensive and slow. But I'm just like, I don't know how slow the format's going to be. But theoretically, if you're just trying to buy time, there's a bunch of like glass casket style cards that are enchantments, not artifacts. Like what were they again? It's
Baffling End.
Yeah, and all those ones before that.
Suspension Field.
So, yeah.
Silk
There's
Wrap.
Silk Wrap. There's all these cards, right? So there's
Yeah.
all these answers that you can start building up, and then you get paid off by playing like Starfield and Nyx and like these other enchantments.
Mhm.
So there is like weird enchantment synergies in this format that I think are worth considering, like as a probably fringe archetypes, but there are the cards there for it. Like there's no doubt the cards to build that deck.
For sure.
This next one is kind of niche. We really had to dig deep to think of this one. It wasn't an obvious thought. But are you guys aware? I know you are because we thought of it. But listeners, are you aware that Siege Rhino is legal in this format?
Man, Siege Rhino, dude, sign me the F up. I am so stoked to be casting Siege Rhinos again. Holy moly.
Our Discord channel for this format, because we have, a channel for every format in the the Discord, and I think this one's literally just called Siege Rhino Appreciation.
As soon as the format was announced, I think
Yeah.
Benson made a channel called Pioneer Siege Rhino Appreciation Chat.
Yeah. And this is the card that we're all big Siege Rhino fans.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
I did
imagine
not
that?
cast enough of that card in Standard. I didn't get around to doing it until it was in Mardu Green, and I missed the Abzan era.
Dude, all I did was cast this card when it
Same.
was legal.
I even had it in my sideboard in
I
Rally.
remember there was a day we showed up to test in paper. We all met at the university to test for some like PTQ that was coming up. And all of us were playing Mardu Green, and we just played Mardu Green mirrors. And we're like, this is useless testing. And then we showed up to the PTQ, and we like all played against only Mardu Green and like just smashed our mirrors.
Everybody top hated it because we were just so ready for it.
That's literally the only thing we tested because we didn't bother proxying, and we were just all playing rhinos.
Yeah, just all Rhino only.
Imagine doing anything else than casting Rhinos.
Yeah,
Standard,
I
though.
kid you not. I had 4 copies in the sideboard of my Rally deck.
I remember that.
Yeah, because it was actually nuts because you board them in versus aggressive decks and they just don't see it coming. You start rhinoing them and they kill them and you just rally them back.
Yeah, dude, Siege Rhino's going to be played a lot in this format, I imagine.
I
That card's-
assume it has
Yeah,
to be.
the
I
All-Star-
mean, just green, like junk mid range is pretty good, or Abzan mid range. Pretty good. It has like Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Fatal Push.
Mhm.
You have the best removal. You have Hissing Quagmire, Shambling Vent.
Yeah,
Side note, I actually think Sylvan Advocate's probably playable in that deck, right?
yeah, I think so.
Because if you're trying to just play a mid-range deck, if you're going to play 8 creature lands, Shambling Vent and Hissing Quagmire, which make your mana very good, you also have the 8 fast lands.
Yeah, the kings of mid-range 3-drops, Tireless Tracker and Corsair Crew Picks, both in this format.
Oh yeah, and number one here, that a card we haven't mentioned yet that is just going to be plastered over this format, Thoughtseize.
Yeah, Thoughtseize in this format.
Right?
Mhm.
This is a staple. This is if you don't own your Thoughtseizes,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss.
you should get them. That reminds me, I ordered some a while back and I keep forgetting to
I never sold mine when they rotated out.
No, I ordered a bunch of extra ones.
Oh,
Yeah, I feel like Abzan across the spectrum is going to be in this format just as it was in Standard because like Fleeceman Lion and Offensa is still there if that's where you want to start.
Oh yeah, if you want to just beat down. But yeah, I mean, just Thoughtseize into whatever, into Siege Rhino's probably good enough to win a lot of games.
Yeah, there's tons of ways to build mid-range, like green-black base mid-range decks in this format. There's also the Delirium decks, Traverse the Uvenwald. Really powerful card that you can easily build around as well.
Hold on. Play Tameo 4, tick it up, name Traverse the Uvenwald, put everything else in the bin. I have Delirium.
Yeah.
Search Ishkanah. Play Ishkanah.
Like if you're already in the business of getting Delirium online and then looking for your deck through things, like Once Upon a Time is just a free instant.
Yeah, there's Once Upon a Time. You have Grizzly Salvage, which we've talked about already as well. Which is
Tameo just a nuts enabler.
Yeah.
And then you can Emrakul people in the fairest way.
Yeah, I mean that deck was good, too powerful for standard. They banned Emrakul.
Wait, you could Stitcher Supplier to get Delirium, and then use Stitcher Supplier to crew your Copter to also get Delirium. So then you got some artifacts in your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, Copter's going to be everywhere. There's a chance that card eats a ban, though, still.
Yeah.
Just because of stuff like this that we're talking about, where it just sort of can go into every... I mean, it's a colorless card. It can go into every deck we've talked about that... no, it can go into all of them. I'm thinking, like...
Are there cards in your deck that you would like to draw more often? You should play Copter.
it's like... It's so good.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was originally banned because all of the aggressive decks adopted it, right? Because it's a colorless 2-drop.
It was every deck.
Yeah, it was just every deck. Even every single deck.
It was like Mardu Vehicles, Blue-White Flash, the green-black...
they were all playing it.
It was like putting counters on it with Verdurous Gearhulk. It was just... every deck had 4.
To it, yeah.
Yeah. Even the mid-range decks had it. The bigger decks, they all had it. And there were no other decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Copter's likely to eat a ban, but I mean, yeah, it goes in these Delirium decks. Grim Flare is also just like a pretty meaty card.
Yeah. Yeah, I can turn that card on a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Walking Ballista, a good pickup for Delirium decks as well.
Ooh, also Cruise Copter.
Yeah, that's not a card that Delirium decks had access to when they were in Standard.
Yeah,
they had to play like Filigree familiar bad artifact creatures. Now you just get Ballista.
Yeah, your traverses are wild, and with recent sets, oh man, like Traverse and Othanissa go get like Murderous Rider.
Yeah,
Well, they
they do.
Jupiter's probably low.
Yeah, but you can just go tutor a hero's downfall.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Traverses.
Wait, it goes on the bottom of your library. You can just tutor
keep
it
traversing it. Yes.
That's nuts.
Yes. Yeah. And if your deck is a bug-based deck and you have Jace, you can like flashback your Traverse. You can like,
ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing Oko as well because that card's busted.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's why we're playing Bug.
There's lots of good
Traverse?
ways to build green-black mid-range decks.
Yeah. Like Bug, like Abzan. There's so many, like the Delirium decks, like as Bug, they can traverse for so many cool things. Like Traverse and Othanissa. Othanissa makes your mana better, so you don't have to worry. You can cast your Okos pretty safely and like other things pretty safely. I don't know, man. It seems wild. The fact that Othanissa can go get an adventure creature like Murderous Rider, so you can Swift End, is unreal.
Yeah.
And yeah, like as Cam pointed out, that you can just keep traversing for a hero's downfall. You only need one copy in your deck.
Yeah, dude. If rock decks end up being some of the best decks in this format, I'm gonna have the best time ever. I love playing those decks.
Yeah, they're super fun.
Yeah,
and I think they can be good. You can't convince me that you can't, because you have such good sideboard options.
Mm-hmm.
Like if people had been winning with Jund in the previous modern formats, you got to be able to do it in Pioneer.
Yeah, you can definitely do it.
Yeah. We have Copter aggro decks on this list, but we've been alluding to these
More just
decks.
like Copter decks.
Yeah, a lot already. There's also red decks, Atarka red, red, white, burn.
I'd rather play red, white. Yeah, just Boros, Charm.
Yeah.
Take 4.
Ramunap runes unbanned into this format.
Yeah.
Dude, Exquisite Firecraft, Boros, Charm.
Stoke the Flame still around.
Stoke, that's a lot of take 4.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of really good red options.
Oh, yeah.
Steamkin might even make an appearance.
Yeah. That card seems a little slow, but maybe.
Yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
and red decks are the decks you got to be ready for in week 1 because it's just such an easy place to start.
Yeah, it's just easy to put together. I mean, Boros Charm just will bail you out of a million bad situations.
Yeah.
You know, that card's insane. Atarka's Command, same thing.
Well, yeah, like the Atarka red decks too, they get good sideboard options in Destructive Revelry. And like, do you remember how messed up Atarka's Command was? That card is so good. Like we have
Yes.
great 1-mana prowess creatures in Soulscar Mage and Monastery Mentor.
Yeah, though that's the big thing with
The mentors in this format.
Not Monastery Mentor, Monastery
Swiftspear.
Swiftspear. Sorry.
Swiftspear, yeah. But I mean, Mentor being in the format also matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That card's also very good. But yeah, and like the fact that either Boros or Gruul decks just have these 8 1-drops that are really threatening
Mhm.
into these, Boros Charm.
Yeah, like this deck's almost the mono red prowess deck from Modern.
Yeah, no, they're
Like
insane.
it's really close. The only thing is like the burn spells in this format outside of Atarka's Command and Boros Charm are actually kind of bad. You have like Lightning Strike.
Yeah, that one's not great, but I
Shock.
think Exquisite Firecraft's actually quite good.
Sure, but the problem is it costs 3.
Yeah, but if you're just trying to finish off the last points of damage, you don't really care.
Yeah, but like mostly what I'm saying is like you don't have any 1-mana 3 damage spells.
No, well, that's a good
And,
thing.
Yeah, like so
Not getting bolted is going to be
Yeah.
fun in this format.
like comparatively, like they're not the greatest burn spells, right?
Yeah.
You also might not need it at the beginning with everyone relying on like Shock Pain land mana bases.
Yeah, a lot of mana is pretty bad.
Light up the stage, really good.
Web stage amazing.
Mono red
Skewer.
as well. Yeah,
Skewer's phenomenal.
yeah.
So speaking of monocolor or mono things, there was a period in Standard where it was mono Bant Company.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think this deck is probably just also a very good place to consider. The mana's not, I don't know how the mana is, but
mana's probably fine.
I mean, you get to play like Lumbering Falls or whatever, or
Yeah, like the mana was fine when it was in
Prairie
Standard,
Stream
right?
or whatever. You can figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. But
Yeah.
they had fetches for like a lot
Like
of it,
worst
but-
case scenario, a note on mana, absolute worst case scenario, everyone plays Shock Check, which is fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And there are upgrades from there.
yeah, actually, and Shock Check is fine in Standard.
Yeah. So
So everyone's mana is
that's
gonna
like
be
a
fine.
baseline.
Yeah, and that's the baseline. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, the Bant Company list is pretty powerful. Like you're looking at Collected Company Oko, right? As your 2 spells that you can play. You can play Drum Command if you want, Dromoka's Command if you want.
play Teferi if you want to.
Yeah, play Teferi if you want. But, I mean, Oko plus Collected Company is already, it's a pretty good list of spells.
Yeah,
And then we're looking at, Spell Queller, Tireless Tracker, busted 3-drops,
Reflector
Reflector
Mage.
Mage,
Yeah.
We have early Dorks that are we can play like Goose if we want to play Oko. We can make sure we have food again.
Are you
Like,
playing Rogue Refiner?
play Rogue
oh
Refiner.
man, I didn't even think about that. I mean, the downside is the energy. We don't really use the energy,
Yeah, it draws a card.
but I mean, yeah, it just draws a card. There's other cards that just draw cards, so
Yeah, that's
probably
true.
get more
You find
value.
something.
But yeah, I mean, you get to play Jacephron's Prodigy in this deck.
Mhm.
You flash back your Collected Companies when you flip it. You can play Selfless Spirit if you want to protect yourself from Wrath. There's other creatures that get the graveyard, that tag the graveyard.
Right.
Right,
There's a new spirit, Remorseful Cleric.
Remorseful
Yeah.
Cleric, yeah. So there's lots of ways. I mean, people have talked about Blue-Eyed Spirits as well, bringing back the Blue-Eyed Spirits list, but I think the company versions are just better because you can create more power on the
Mhm.
board. Like this deck seems pretty scary to me. It
What
has
if
a
we
lot.
just company flyers? What if we're like Spell Queller, Hanged Executioner, comping into Empyrean Eagle?
Well, that actually sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
Probably not great, but
Yeah, who knows?
yeah, no, this deck
Companies
has a
world,
lot
right?
going on for Band Company, and not just the standard cards. I mean, there's cards from they get upgrades across the board for power level for their 3-drops. So
Mhm.
We also have a block where we're mentioning just sort of tribal aggro decks, like the
LT.
upgrades of your humans. Valiant's Lieutenant is still around.
There's
There's
another good company deck if you want to go
another
hard
great
on
company deck.
Humans
There's some people have
Company.
been playing goblins like Pile Driver. You've got a bunch of Rabble Masters in
Yeah.
War Boss and Rebel Master itself.
Goblin
Embercleave's
Cleave.
good here.
Yeah, Goblin Cleave,
Man, that sounds sweet.
Rabble Master, Ember Cleave. Oh,
Yeah, that's so good. Embercleave's so good with Rabble Master and Pile Driver.
yeah, it's insane.
It's absurd.
I talked about it in Modern because I was saying that if you can just turn 1 Dork, turn 2 any of those Ember Cleave, that curve is like pretty close to enough.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, in Pioneer, this is busted. Like green red, just like your entire game plan is turn 1 Dork because you have 8, turn 2 Rabble Master or War Boss, and then Embercleave them on turn 3. That's
Yeah.
16 damage, by the way.
Yeah, so I mentioned this in the pre-show, but I saw Caleb D brewing up a Goblin Cleave deck playing, he was playing Torbrand on the top of his curve. And Legion Loyalist is one of the 1-drops. So like
Yeah.
Torbrand and Legion Loyalist
Do.
is pretty absurd. And then, of course, Torbrand and Embercleave just like you win immediately.
Yeah.
The deck looked really scary, and he was winning a lot with it. So, you know.
Embercleave's an insane card, and Rabble Master is going to be scary. Yeah, Rabble Master's a real threat.
Yeah, we've also got Zombies on here. Notably, Zombies was a tribal deck that won a Pro Tour when it was in Standard.
It's very powerful. Those cards are still incredibly powerful. They've gotten upgrades. Again, Murderous Rider, Swift End is a zombie knight. There's just a heap of powerful zombies, all over the place. Some that weren't particularly playable in Standard, but might line up because they have the support across tribes. So, but I think the two best ones are probably humans and then elves, which is the last one we have on our list. I think elves is very strong.
Notably, elves, we have Company, we have Court of Calling, Shaman of the Pack, 8/1 mana dorks. Elvish Archdruid illegal in this set, in this format?
I can't remember.
I have no idea.
I know it was in Core 2012. I don't remember if it was reprinted since.
I think it was. But I mean, really, that's not a huge deal. The whole point is that you have 8 dorks plus Collected Company plus Shaman of the Pack.
Yeah, Shaman of the Pack being around.
It looks like it was in M13 most recently, so it's not legal.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. Yeah.
If you use Scryfall, it just has a little square and it says like modern legal, pioneer not legal. Like you don't have to squint at set
I
symbols.
just clicked the first Google. I think give me a break.
But and there's other +1/+1 elves, tribal stuff, but I don't think that's really how you're winning. I think you're winning by just probably playing like Elf Nykthos, which is Shaman of the Pack as an alternative finisher. But there's lots of ways to win with it. Like you can Elf Ball people, you can Shaman of the Pack people.
It's probably another good finale deck.
Yeah, you just tutor shamans if you really want.
Do you think a fish deck's going to be good enough? Like Harbinger of the Tides is in the format now with the fish from Ixalan.
Merfolk's never good. Get out of here.
Yeah, right, fair.
They don't have Spreading Seas. They have Mutavault. No Spreading Seas, though.
Mutavault's going to be everywhere in this format, too, in some in a deck like Elves or whatever. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it all over.
How many lords do they even have? One?
No, you can't play Merfolk.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just...
Merfolk sucks. Get out of here.
Yeah, all right,
Merfolk rules, just not in this format. It's the king of eternal formats.
King of eternal formats.
So that's the end of our list, but there's sort of an archetype that we haven't talked about are just sort of control decks, like pure control. This is going to be the analogs of blue-white control in Modern. Because like my favorite card of all time, Dragon Lord Ojutai, could make a reappearance because that dragon never got to attack next to a Teferi 3.
Yeah, that's wild.
Hexproof until your opponent can't interact, and then you hit them and draw a card. That's wild.
Yeah, it really just depends if that as your finisher is better than playing Torrential Gearhulk, I guess.
I
right?
think
It's way better.
Yeah, I feel like just Counterspell with Ojutai makes it play like
You get actual
good.
Counterspell in Silumgar
Like having
Scorn.
Counterspell is like busto.
Yeah, but like
5,
Torrential Gearhulk lets you flashback Dig Through Time for free.
but not into Teferis.
Yeah, okay.
Like Ojutai is better at pressuring these planeswalkers that are going to be probably everywhere. Do you need to flashback dig if you're anticipating for free every turn?
I don't know.
Yeah, like if you're opting for every turn.
Like, why don't you
Or,
just draw a dig and cast it?
Yeah. That's a full blown anticipate, actually. Yeah, I forget about that. Like,
Yeah.
that's actually busted. Yeah, no, Ojutai is crazy. And also, the dragon spells are super powerful.
Yeah, like Harness Lightning is probably one of the best red removal spells
Well,
But-
only if you're playing energy. But
if you're playing energy. But otherwise, like Draconic Roar is around.
Yeah.
Not sure if it's going to be
even
good enough,
the
but
foul tongue is good. Like the sack gain life can be very good.
Yeah, if
Might be
you're
too
going-
slow for this format. It
yeah, you
depends.
could upgrade.
But I think
Esper Dragons.
Ojutai just Silumgar Scorn is enough to justify playing dragons because Counterspell is just so busted. When that thing was in Standard, it was insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Esper
it was very
Dragons
good.
was a scourge on the format when it was around.
Yeah. Notably, we do have a 4-mana Wrath in this format, Supreme Verdict, the best 4-mana
The best Wrath ever printed. Yeah.
So,
Well, Wrath got pretty good. Can't regenerate.
yeah.
What if you
Yeah.
get Thrun the Last Trolled? Well, it's not in this format, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely room for a good control deck in this format. There's a lot of good options. Really
How you build
depends.
it is the question. Like that's the only thing that matters. I don't know. I'm like pretty iffy on like draw go just because Teferi 3 seems like one of the dominant forces in the format. What are you going to do? Cast Absorb?
Yeah.
Counter Magic has just been increasingly.
Yeah, I think you're probably only playing Silumgar Scorn if you have counter magic. Maybe like some spell snares, not spell snares, spell
no,
pierces.
You could play, you'd probably want some copies of Censor, right? So,
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sensor's
probably
sick
fun.
with Treasure Cruise.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I
Wait, you
feel
just
like
play
Sensor's
Sensor and
probably
Blue
really
Red
good.
Phoenix too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe you get them. Maybe you cycle it.
Yeah, you just cycle it in Treasure Cruise.
Yeah.
Turn this into 4 cards.
That is really good.
That's just the Philosopher's Stone.
But yeah, I think like tap out like just a bunch of removal spells, control, like Thought Season removal spells into Cruise and Ojutai.
That Esper Dragons get Thoughtseize too.
Didn't it have it?
No, it wasn't in Theros,
it wasn't.
right?
Thoughtseize wasn't there. I thought I played Esper with Heroes
Thoughtseize
Downfall.
was in Theros.
Yeah, but what was Cons right after Theros?
Oh, maybe. Did it have Thoughtseize?
Wasn't it?
I think it did.
Jeez, that's busted. No wonder that deck never lost.
Unless I'm misremembering something for some wild reason.
There's got to be a set in between we're missing.
Mm,
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't want to waste time talking
But yeah.
about it on the, yeah. So,
but it will have Thoughtseize now.
Yeah.
yeah,
is
no matter what. Like, Thoughtseize is just everywhere. Like, that's definitely one of the major cards in this format. I mean, there's a lot of, like, those cards that should never have been in formats that are going to be all over the place, like Thoughtseize. I wonder about, like, Sphinx's Revelation, too, if it's, like, too old.
Sphinx's Rev? Yeah, I mean, it's got to compete with the Delve Dredge cards or the Delve Draw cards.
Well, you could be like
But it could still
Sphinx's
do it.
Rev and Wilderness Reclamation. Do that.
Yeah. That was another archetype I forgot that
Yeah.
I talked about, which was Wilderness Reclamation, Nexus of Fate, Dig Through Time, Turbo Fog.
Oh, yeah. Nexus is.
Actual fog in this format.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just straight up dig through time into your Nexus of Fates.
Yeah, it seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it depends how fast the format is. And if
Well,
you're
you just
dying.
play like Growth Spiral too, right? Like
Yeah.
you're just ramping.
I don't think it matters how fast the format is.
Yeah, they're not taking any turns. Like you can just turbo turns people.
Format's as fast as I want to play because I'm the only one doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's I'm sure a ton of
A bunch of
archetypes
stuff we missed. There's
we're
gotta be that people are
missing,
gonna come up
but
with.
yeah, there's gonna be some wacky ones. But we thought we would just spend some time talking about the archetypes you can look out for, decks you can get excited to brew and play with. I think it seems pretty sweet. I mean, I'm like normally not big on new formats or anything, but the fact that fetch lands are banned, I'm in.
There's hope.
The fact that fetch lands are banned and that they're willing to be aggressive about keeping this format in check gives me hope for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I like that they're saying right off the bat that they're going to be supporting this format a lot. So it's looking good.
Yeah, most of the decks we talked about were sort of standard decks of old that you could upgrade, but if nothing else, your new brood needs to be able to deal with these as sort of a testing gauntlet.
You know, it's going to be so great too to have another format we can talk about other than standard that's not modern. That isn't just horrible.
Yeah,
Hey, legacy rules.
fingers crossed.
All right. Thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. Get your sweet Pioneer singles now for your new format. If you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/DWC Podcast. All patrons get access to the DWC Discord and the pre-show for every episode. We have other sweet benefits like custom DWC tokens as well. You can follow us on Twitter over at twitter.com/DWC Podcast 1. We're also on Facebook, the Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. And however you listen to the show, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, any podcast app, leave a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. Everything helps keep this thing growing and bring it to new listeners. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.
See ya.